"You're just not leadership material, Megan," my mother said, her voice carrying across the ballroom despite her measured tone. "Your sister has the presence, the business acumen. You're brilliant with technology, of course, but Vanessa understands people." A hush fell over the crowded gala. Hundreds of eyes turned toward our table. Investors, business partners, employees, all witnessing my public dismissal. The gold symbiosis, celebrating $250 million. Banner above the stage seemed to mock me as my mother handed Vanessa a ceremonial check for $1.5 million, her leadership bonus, for a company transformation she had nothing to do with. "Thank you, Mother. I'm honored," Vanessa said, rising to accept both the check and the thunderous applause that followed. I maintained my smile, raising my champagne glass in a toast, while something cold and hard crystallized in my chest. 6 months of sleepless nights. Thousands of lines of code written in my apartment after full work days at the office. A revolutionary inventory management system that had single-handedly pulled Anderson Supply Chain Solutions back from the brink of bankruptcy. All credited to my sister, who couldn't write a line of code if her life depended on it. My name is Megan Anderson, 29 years old, software developer, an apparently invisible daughter, despite having just saved my family's 70-year-old business from collapse. Anderson Supply Chain Solutions had been bleeding money for years, our outdated systems unable to compete with more technologically advanced competitors. When our biggest client threatened to leave, taking 40% of our revenue with them, I'd seen an opportunity to finally prove my worth to the family. The SymbioS app I developed revolutionized our entire business model, creating a seamless system that not only retained our major clients, but attracted dozens of new ones. In 6 months, we'd gone from the verge of bankruptcy to $250 million in revenue, a 400% increase. Tonight was supposed to be my moment of recognition. Instead, I'd been patted on the head like a good pet while Vanessa, with her MBA and natural charisma, was handed the keys to the kingdom I'd saved. "Speech," someone called from the crowd, and Vanessa stepped to the microphone, her smile dazzling under the ballroom lights. "Anderson Supply Chain Solutions has always been about family and innovation," she began. "The app that has transformed our business was truly a team effort, though I must acknowledge my sister's technical contribution." I nodded politely as she reduced 6 months of revolutionary software development to a technical contribution. As the evening wore on, I circulated through the crowd, accepting congratulations from people who clearly knew who had actually created SymbioS, regardless of my mother's public narrative. What no one realized, not my mother, not Vanessa, not a single person in the glittering ballroom, was that I had never actually transferred ownership of the app to Anderson Supply Chain Solutions. A detail that would become very, very important tomorrow morning. The Anderson family had been in the logistics business since my grandfather started hauling construction supplies in a single truck after World War II. Each generation had expanded the company, with my mother taking it national in the 1990s. It was always assumed that Vanessa, 5 years my senior, would eventually take the reins. She had the business degree, the polished demeanor, and most importantly, our mother's complete confidence. I was the family anomaly, more interested in computers than corporate meetings, happier coding in solitude than networking at business functions. My father, before his death 10 years ago, had been my champion. "Megan sees the future," he would tell my mother. "She understands systems in ways the rest of us never will." After Dad died, I'd honored his faith in me by earning a computer science degree, then a master's in artificial intelligence, hoping my expertise would eventually find a place in the family business. But when I returned with my credentials, Mother had relegated me to the IT department, a support role, maintaining our outdated systems rather than transforming them. "We're a logistics company, not a tech startup," she would remind me whenever I proposed modernization. "Let's stick to what we know." Vanessa, meanwhile, was being groomed for leadership, shadowing our mother in executive meetings and representing the company at industry events. I didn't begrudge her the attention. She was good with people, skilled at the networking essential to our business. What frustrated me was how my own contributions were consistently minimized, my technical expertise treated as a quirky hobby rather than a business asset. 6 months ago, when our biggest client threatened to leave, citing our antiquated tracking systems, I'd seen my opportunity. I approached Mother with a proposal. Give me 6 months to develop a proprietary app that would revolutionize our supply chain management. We don't have the budget to hire a development team, she'd said dismissively. You don't need one, I can do it myself. She'd laughed at that, actually laughed, before Vanessa intervened. Let her try, Mother. What do we have to lose at this point? It wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but it was enough. I was given a modest budget and a 6-month deadline. What neither of them knew was that I'd already been working on the project for nearly a year, developing the framework during evenings and weekends in my apartment. I worked officially during days, then continued coding late into each night. I documented everything, every line of code, every decision, every milestone, partially out of good development practice, and partially because something in Vanessa's support had felt calculating rather than sisterly. The project was my chance to finally prove my value to the family business, but I wasn't naive enough to think professional jealousy couldn't exist between sisters. Still, I never expected tonight's complete dismissal of my contribution, or the sinking realization that my family might never see me as anything more than technical support. The morning after the gala, I arrived at the office early, intending to clear my head before the inevitable meetings about transition to Vanessa's leadership. The development lab I'd been using was tucked away in the basement of our Seattle headquarters, out of sight, like my contribution to the company's survival. As I entered the lab, I was surprised to find Vanessa already there, examining the whiteboard where I'd mapped the Symbios architecture. She hadn't bothered to visit once during the entire development process. Morning, I said, setting down my laptop bag. Admiring your handiwork? She had the grace to look momentarily embarrassed. Don't be like that, Meg. Last night was business, not personal. Taking credit for my work is pretty personal from where I'm standing. Vanessa sighed, perching on the edge of my desk. Look, I know you did the technical heavy lifting, but Mother's right. This company needs a face people trust, someone who speaks their language. The clients relate to me. And that justifies the bonus, the promotion? Acting like you had anything to do with developing the app that saved the company? The app is company property, developed by an Anderson employee for Anderson Supply Chain Solutions, she said, her tone shifting from conciliatory to businesslike. Your salary was compensation for that work, just like any other project. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because they revealed how completely my family misunderstood both me and modern business realities. They genuinely believed the app automatically belonged to the company, to them, simply because I was an employee and an Anderson. I wanted to give you a heads up, Vanessa continued, apparently interpreting my silence as acceptance. Mother's announcing the new executive structure this morning. You're being promoted to Chief Technology Officer. CTO? I said, momentarily caught off guard. It's a significant title bump from IT manager, she pointed out, and a 30% raise. We recognize your contribution, Meg, truly. But the company needs clear leadership, and that means you, I finished, because I'm just the tech person. She patted my shoulder as she stood to leave. I knew you'd understand. The board meeting starts at 9. Try not to be late. It looks unprofessional. After she left, I sat at my desk, staring at the complex system architecture on my whiteboard. All those nights, all that innovation, reduced to being the tech person, who should be grateful for a title bump while my sister took the real power and compensation. I opened my laptop and navigated to a folder labeled Symbios Legal. Inside was documentation I'd prepared months ago, but hoped never to need. Copyright registrations, timestamps of development milestones, the GitHub repository showing my sole authorship, and most importantly, the fact that I had developed the majority of the app on my own time, using my personal equipment. I had hoped my family would recognize my value on their own. That hope had died a very public death last night. Now it was time for Plan B. I pulled out my phone and called the number I'd saved but never expected to use. Heather? It's Megan Anderson. I need your legal services after all. How soon can you come to my office? At 8:55 a.m., I stood outside the boardroom, Heather Preston at my side. As one of Seattle's top intellectual property attorneys, her presence alone would send a message, but the documents in her leather portfolio would do far more than that. Are you sure about this? Heather asked quietly. Once we walk in, there's no going back to the way things were with your family. The way things were wasn't working for me, I replied. And judging by last night, it never will. We entered the boardroom precisely at 9. Mother sat at the head of the table, with Vanessa to her right. The other seats were filled with board members, mostly family friends and business associates who had backed Anderson Supply Chain Solutions for decades. All eyes turned to Heather, clearly wondering who the stranger in the power suit might be. Megan, you're just in time, Mother said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. And you've brought a guest? This is Heather Preston, my attorney, I said, taking a seat across from Vanessa. I believe the first item on today's agenda is the new executive structure, which directly concerns me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mother's smile vanished entirely. I wasn't aware you felt you needed legal representation for a family business discussion, she said coldly. I didn't either, until last night made it clear that family and business have very different definitions in this company. Mother glanced at the other board members, clearly trying to maintain control of the narrative. Perhaps we should discuss this privately first, Megan. Actually, I think the entire board should hear this, I countered. After all, they have fiduciary responsibilities to the company, and what I'm about to share directly impacts Anderson's primary asset. Heather opened her portfolio and distributed copies of a document to everyone at the table. This is a preliminary licensing agreement for the SymbioS application, which legally belongs to Megan Anderson as its sole creator and copyright holder. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Vanessa snatched up the document, her face flushing as she scanned its contents. This is absurd, Mother declared. The app was developed for Anderson Supply Chain Solutions by an employee. It belongs to the company. Heather remained perfectly calm. That would be true if development had occurred exclusively during company time, using company resources, and within the scope of Ms. Anderson's job description. However, as the documentation we've prepared demonstrates, approximately 78% of development occurred on Ms. Anderson's personal time, using her personal equipment, and far beyond the scope of her role as IT manager. She produced a second, thicker document detailing my development timeline, complete with timestamps, commits, and evidence of when and where the work had been done. This is a family company, Mother hissed, her composure slipping. We don't need these legal games. I'm not playing games, I said quietly. I'm protecting my intellectual property while still trying to benefit the company. The licensing agreement is extremely favorable, much more so than you'd get from any third party. You're holding your own family hostage, Vanessa accused, slapping the licensing agreement down on the table. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Vanessa? Take credit for my work? Accept a bonus for my innovation? One of the board members, Harold Jameson, a tech venture capitalist who'd been my father's friend, cleared his throat. I'd like to review these documents before we proceed. If Ms. Anderson's claims are valid, we need to approach this carefully. Mother looked betrayed by his reasonable response. Harold, surely you're not entertaining this rebellion? It's not rebellion, Eleanor. It's business. And if your daughter has created valuable intellectual property, she has every right to protect it. He turned to me. Though I must ask, what are your intentions, Megan? What outcome are you seeking here? Before I could answer, Mother interrupted. Her intention is clearly to extort money from her own family by threatening to pull the technology that our clients now depend on. She fixed me with an icy stare. Is that it? You want more money? A bigger title? The accusation stung, but I kept my voice level. What I want is recognition of my contribution and a fair stake in the company's future. The SymbiOS app isn't just an improvement to our business, it is our business now, and I'd like a say in how it evolves. The battle lines were drawn, and from the looks on my mother's and sister's faces, this was just the beginning. The emergency board meeting stretched into the afternoon as Heather methodically presented evidence of my ownership rights. Harold and two other board members with tech backgrounds asked pointed questions, clearly taking the matter seriously, while Mother and Vanessa grew increasingly hostile. Even if, and this is a substantial if, Megan has some technical claim to the software, withdrawing it now would destroy the company, Mother argued. That would hurt everyone, including Megan herself. This is nothing but a tantrum because she wasn't named CEO. I'm not threatening to withdraw the software, I clarified for the third time. The licensing agreement ensures Anderson Supply Chain Solutions can continue using SymbiOS without interruption. I'm simply establishing that I own the intellectual property and should have appropriate compensation and authority over its development. Which conveniently undermines the leadership structure announced last night, Vanessa pointed out. If you control the app that runs our entire operation, you effectively control the company, regardless of titles. There was truth in her observation, which was precisely why my family should have considered these implications before dismissing my contribution so completely. Harold called for a brief recess, and the board members filed out, leaving me alone with Heather in the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see Mother and Vanessa in intense conversation with the company's general counsel, who had been hastily summoned mid-meeting. They're going to counter with something, Heather warned. Stay focused on your primary objectives. When the meeting reconvened 30 minutes later, Mother's expression had shifted from outrage to calculation, a look I recognized from countless business negotiations I'd witnessed growing up. She was pivoting to a new strategy. After consulting with counsel, we acknowledge that Megan may have certain rights regarding the SymbiOS application, she began, each word clearly painful to utter. In the interest of family harmony and business continuity, we're prepared to offer a generous settlement. The company's attorney distributed counter-proposal documents, a one-time payment of $5 million in exchange for complete transfer of all rights to the application. This is 5 times the bonus awarded to Vanessa, Mother pointed out, a clear recognition of your technical contribution while allowing the company to move forward under stable leadership. $5 million was significant money, life-changing for most people. But SymbiOS wasn't just code. It was my vision for transforming not just Anderson's supply chain solutions, but potentially the entire logistics industry. The app I'd created was worth far more than $5 million, both financially and strategically. Before I could respond, Harold spoke up. I've reviewed the technical documentation, and I have to say, Megan's work goes well beyond what I'd consider a standard employee contribution. This isn't just an app. It's a complete reimagining of how logistics can function in the digital age. Several other board members nodded, and I felt a surge of vindication at finally having my work understood. However, Harold continued, fragmenting ownership of such a critical system creates untenable business risks. If we're acknowledging Megan's ownership, then we need to address leadership directly. Meaning what exactly? Mother asked sharply. Meaning we should consider whether our traditional leadership succession plans still make sense given this new reality. The implied suggestion, that I might be better suited to lead the company than Vanessa, hung in the air. To my surprise, 2 other board members voiced immediate agreement. Mother's face hardened. This board does not dictate family succession. The Anderson family maintains controlling interest, and we have decided. Actually, the company's attorney interrupted, looking distinctly uncomfortable. If the SymbiOS intellectual property is determined to belong to Megan personally, and given its critical nature to operations, the controlling interest question becomes complicated. It was at that moment I realized this confrontation had escalated far beyond what I'd anticipated. I wasn't just challenging my place in the family hierarchy anymore. I was potentially taking control of the entire company my grandfather had founded. Mother seemed to realize it too. She stared at me across the table, and for the first time in my life, I saw something new in her eyes. Fear. The meeting adjourned with tension thick enough to cut. Mother requested 24 hours to consider the situation before reconvening, and the board agreed. As everyone filed out, Vanessa caught my arm. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish?" she demanded, her voice low. "Humiliate Mother? Take over the company? Get revenge because I got a bonus?" "I created something valuable and I want proper recognition for it," I replied evenly, both financially and in terms of decision-making power for the technology's future. "So it's not enough to be CTO? You want my job too?" I pulled my arm free. "I never asked for your job, Vanessa, but I did earn a seat at the table where decisions about my technology are made. If that threatens you, maybe you should ask yourself why." She stepped back, her expression hardening. "You have no idea what you've started. Mother won't just hand over control of this company, not even to family." I'm starting to think I was never really considered family in the first place, just the weird tech person you keep in the basement until you need something. The hurt that flashed across Vanessa's face was genuine, making me regret the harshness of my words despite their truth. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, then gave me a look I couldn't interpret. "Mother wants to see you, alone. Her office, 15 minutes. After Vanessa left, Heather expressed concern about me meeting Mother without legal representation, but I assured her I could handle a family conversation. "Text me if you need backup," she insisted before departing. Mother's corner office overlooked the Seattle waterfront, the Space Needle visible in the distance on clear days. She stood at the window when I entered, her posture rigid with tension. "Close the door," she said without turning. I did as instructed, then waited. The silence stretched between us until finally Mother spoke, still facing the window. "Do you know what your grandfather started with? One truck. One. He drove it himself, delivered construction supplies all over Washington state, slept in it when necessary." She turned to face me. "He built this company with his hands, his determination. Your father expanded it through relationships. He knew everyone in the industry, remembered their children's names, sent cards on birthdays." "I know the family history." "No, you don't," she cut me off sharply. "You know the sanitized version we tell at company events. You don't know how many times we nearly went under. You don't know that your father mortgaged our house. Twice. To make payroll during recessions. You don't know that I once went 3 years without drawing a salary so we could afford to modernize our warehouses." She moved to her desk and unlocked a drawer, removing a thick folder. "You think this is about an app? About who gets credit? It's about 70 years of Anderson blood, sweat, and sacrifices." She slapped the folder down on her desk. "Your technology is impressive, revolutionary even, but an app can be copied, improved upon, replaced. What can't be replaced is this company's reputation, its relationships, its people." I approached her desk cautiously. "I never wanted to damage the company." "Then what do you want, Megan? Tell me exactly what outcome you're seeking here." It was the same question Harold had asked, but coming from my mother, it carried different weight. For the first time, she seemed to be genuinely asking rather than assuming. "I want to be valued for what I contribute," I said simply. "Not just with money, but with a voice in the company's direction. The app isn't just a tool, it's a new business model, and I want to help shape how it evolves." Mother studied me for a long moment, then opened the folder. Inside was a new proposal. Not a buyout this time, but a restructuring of the company itself. "Then perhaps it's time for Anderson Supply Chain Solutions to evolve as well." The document outlined a bold reorganization, spinning off the technology into a separate entity, Anderson Tech, which would license the software not just to our family business, but to other companies in the industry. The proposed CEO of this new venture? Me. It wasn't a concession, it was a challenge, and the stakes had just gotten much higher. The next morning, the board reconvened with an expanded agenda. Mother stood at the head of the table, commanding the room as she had for decades. After considerable reflection and consultation, I'm proposing a strategic restructuring of Anderson Supply Chain Solutions, she announced, projecting a confidence I knew masked deeper emotions. The success of the SymbioS application has revealed new possibilities for our company's future. She outlined her proposal for spinning off Anderson Tech as a separate entity under my leadership, while Vanessa would continue leading the traditional logistics operations. Both companies would remain under the Anderson family umbrella, creating a more diverse business portfolio. This approach recognizes both the value of our established operations and the transformative potential of Megan's technological innovations, she concluded, making eye contact with each board member. When she finished, all eyes turned to me. The proposal was clever. It acknowledged my ownership of the technology while preventing a complete power shift. It also contained several provisions that would keep ultimate control firmly in my mother's hands as chair of both companies' boards. Thank you for the proposal, I said, my voice steady. But there are some modifications needed. I signaled Heather, who distributed a counter-proposal I'd worked on throughout the night. While I accepted the basic structure of separate companies, my version established clear independence for Anderson Tech, with its own board comprised of tech industry veterans rather than family friends. It also specified that while the family logistics business would be a primary client, Anderson Tech would be free to pursue broader market opportunities. Most crucially, my proposal included a formal acknowledgement that the SymbioS intellectual property belonged to me personally, with a licensing structure that ensured fair compensation for its use. These terms are non-negotiable, I concluded. My technology, my conditions. Harold was the first to speak up. I think Megan's counter-proposal is not only fair, but strategically sound. It positions both companies for growth in their respective spaces. Other board members began nodding, and I watched as the family power dynamic shifted irrevocably before my eyes. 6 months after the restructuring, I stood on a different stage in a different ballroom, accepting the Pacific Northwest Technology Innovation Award for SymbioS. Anderson Tech had expanded to 30 employees, secured 3 major clients beyond the family business, and was projected to hit $500 million in revenue by year's end. Mother sat at the center table, her expression a complex mixture of pride and resignation. Beside her, Vanessa applauded politely, though tensions between us remained strained. The traditional logistics business she led was stable but no longer the family's crown jewel, a reality she was still adjusting to. Innovation often comes from unexpected places, I said in my acceptance speech. And sometimes the hardest part isn't creating something new, but finding the courage to claim ownership of your creation. After the ceremony, Mother approached me, her usual commanding presence somehow diminished in the tech-focused crowd, where her decades of logistics expertise carried less weight. Your father would be proud, she said quietly. He always said you saw systems differently than the rest of us. Thank you, I replied, surprised by the genuine sentiment. That means a lot. She glanced around at the tech executives networking nearby. I underestimated this world, and you. I won't make that mistake again. It wasn't quite an apology, but from Eleanor Anderson, it was as close as anyone ever got. As she walked away, I felt a surprising lack of triumph. The vindication I'd imagined tasted different in reality, less sweet, more complex. I had secured recognition, independence, and the opportunity to pursue my vision without constraint. But the family relationships had been fundamentally altered in the process. Harold appeared at my elbow, champagne in hand. To the future of Anderson Tech, he said, raising his glass. Your grandfather built an empire with a single truck. Imagine what you'll build with a single app. I smiled, clinking my glass against his. I already am. This is just the beginning. And as I surveyed the room full of people there to celebrate technology I had created, I realized that sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't about tearing others down, but about rising to heights they never imagined you could reach, and taking your rightful place when you get there.